Okay.
Okay, this is so exciting as we get ready to broadcast our first ever, Lupe, show. The morning show, the morning cup. And of all mornings for me not to have a voice, it's today.
It's a memorable day.
I have to say welcome to all of our guests. And oh my goodness.
You gotta have Lupe take the lead.
Yeah, thankfully we'll let
I got you, girl. This is the beauty of tag team at its finest right here, ladies and gentlemen, right? So
right.
No, so you know what? We are super excited to be bringing the Morning Cup live to you, ladies. Like Barb was mentioning, this is our first segment. And the Morning Cup is really a community show that brings together amazing interviewees and experts to share knowledge with you, to bring topics of interest, but in an entertaining format. But it's all with you in mind. So everything, all the content that we're producing, the experts that we bring on board is really focused to help you, the amazing woman over 40 and 50, kick butt in your second act. So thank you for joining us this morning.
We appreciate you for joining us. And we are the co-founders of Second Act Women. And we founded this because we experienced what many of you have experienced, will experience, hopefully will never experience, and that's ageism. So Second Act Women was born in 2018. And right now, you know, Lupe and I are going through as a new company, the innovation of pivoting and becoming innovative with some of the things that we had planned on doing later in the year and in 2021, which is this show, which was eventually going to be a YouTube channel and podcast. So again, we welcome you to the first edition of the Morning Cup. Cheers.
Cheers, everyone. Yay.
We want to introduce you first. I love this tea. I get it at the dollar store, believe it or not. And it's like $5 on Amazon. Lupe, do you want to introduce Dr. Elliott?
Of course. We are so excited. It's also known as the Happiness Doctor, right? I love that title, I gotta say. So this is Dr. Elliott Gorgoris. He is a PhD and is the happiness and wellness expert. He is the #1 best-selling author of 7 Paths to Lasting Happiness, which has been translated to numerous dialects and languages because there is a need to better understand what it means to truly live happy in today's life, right? He is also an international keynote speaker. And just last week, he spoke in Paris, London, Rome, and Athens. And so we are...
Not last week, last year.
I was saying, wow, the man has been busy. Wow. You know what? You could have with Zoom, right? Like, I mean, you never know, but thank you for the correction. I appreciate it. But
no worries.
We are super excited to be here with you because obviously your belief and your kind of expertise and area of focus is something that our women right now, well, anybody right now really is struggling to find happiness. Considering the time that we're in. And so let's dive in with some questions. Barb, did you want to kick it off? Or?
Yeah. You know, I met you last year and it was such a pleasure. And when I met you, it was when we were filming, I won a slot to become a co-host of your show with Randy McNally. And we instantly became friends. And so, pardon me, everyone, voices out. And so I immediately gravitated to you because I love the concept of happiness, kindness, and doing well to others, by others, and all of that. And I got to tell you, the 7 Paths to Lasting Happiness, you gave that to me as a gift last year. And I loved the book. And I'm so excited to hear that you've since released, even just this week, a new book that we're going to really dive into because this topic within your segment is really about navigating crisis. And this is a big crisis for many of us. And so as a PhD and the co-founder of the Happiness Center right here in Denver, Colorado, we would love for you to share a little bit about your story and how it is you became the Happiness Doctor. And you also are an expert in disaster mental health. I mean, let's dive in.
All right. So thank you for having me. First of all, I'm so honored to be your very first guest. I hope it's a memorable show. So honestly, the seven paths to lasting happiness, I didn't write it as a PhD. I wrote it from my heart. So people say, that have known me, it's like we can actually hear your Greek accent and everything when we read your book, because I wanted everybody to read it. And we say this, that knowledge without application is just education, meaning that you can read all the happiness books in the world, the top 10 books or the top 10 finance books or whatever. And usually what we do, we read them, we highlight them to death. And then when we're done, we put them up on the bookshelf, right? Mm-hmm. But my book is a how-to book. And actually this book, The 7 Keys to Navigating a Crisis, is also a how-to book. So at the end of every chapter, we have, points for people to consider, to meditate on, to think about seriously, a couple of questions. And then we get to the point where we call take action, because it's in the action that people are transformed. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, we can be more educated about navigating a crisis or being happier, but then nothing really changes in our lives. And then we're probably more frustrated because we know more, but then we don't do anything different. So it doesn't matter what you know. What matters in life is what you do with what you know. Seriously.
So Elia, Dr. Elia, we always talk to people about happiness and kindness and find it. And there's affirmations and there's quotes and all of those sort of things. But honestly, how do we get people to act on it? How in the world do we get that to actually happen? Because we can read every book. We can read.
I got it. I know what you're saying.
You got the gist of the question.
No, I know it's it. And I want to give you an example of, people say, well, how did you become a happiness expert? And honest to goodness, it happened the very first day I was born. I'm serious. This is a true story. I was born a long time ago in Athens, Greece. And as the story was told to me growing up as a kid, my dad shows up, kind of a tough Greek guy, cigarette, drink, and all that stuff at the hospital, and asked this nurse, I said, there were 5 little babies all wrapped up in the same white generic blanket behind a window. He asked the nurse, which one is my son? And I guess at that point I had a big smile on my face. So the nurse said, your son, he's the happy one. And I was branded the happy one from the day that I was born. And that's what I was told. You came out of the womb happy. You've always been like, if you've known me for a long time, that's what happened. Now get this though. Fast forward 25 years. Now I'm in graduate school, and our professor is teaching us about the difference between nature versus nurture. In other words, is it our genetic predisposition that makes us who we are, or is it truly our environment? And the truth is that it's both. And I had this terrible thought in the middle of this class. I remember as it was yesterday. I'm like, wait a minute. What if my dad gets stuck in traffic? He shows up 15 minutes late, goes up to the same little window, asks the same nurse the same question. And at that point, I have like gas pains and I'm screaming my head off and my face is like all red. And the nurse turns to my dad and says, you know what? Your son, he's the cranky one. And then I'm told growing up, Elia, you came out of the womb crying, you miserable little bleep.
With a whole different life trajectory for you, right?
Exactly.
Now, why is this important? I'll tell you this, because I've worked with thousands of people, mostly women actually. So about 3 or 4 years ago, I'm giving a talk in North Carolina at a women's conference. There are 500 women and me. And I'm sharing this story and I'm saying, look, ladies, there's some brands, personal brands that are positive, like the princess, the happy one, the creative one, the athletic one, the intelligent one, the good-hearted one. Those are great brands. If you've been branded like that early on in your life, count your blessings. However, in my experience with working with people, a lot of the brands are terrible, negative, horrific at times. Some of them I'm not even going to repeat on this, but I will tell you the top 3, the worst brands: the fat one, the ugly one, and the stupid one. No, these are people that have shared this with me. This is not a joke. So in the middle of my talk, this is really powerful. There's a lady off to the side that stands up and starts waving her arms in her 70s. This is really important. And she says, and because I challenged the audience that if you don't like your brand, today's the day to empower them. Change your brand today so you can view yourself from different lenses, not the negative. So she stands up and she goes, you know what? I'm listening to you. And I grew up for 70 years. I've been told that I'm fat, stupid, and ugly. She had all 3 of them. So she had the trifecta.
Wow.
And when she shared that with us, you could hear a pin drop. It got so quiet. I mean, it was, to me, to be that vulnerable and that open in front of 500 people was shocking. I mean, she stopped my talk, right? And I'm like, it threw me off guard for a little bit. And I'm like, well, ma'am, thank you for sharing. I said, well, what would you like your new brand to be? And her name, by the way, was Leah, the first name. She goes, well, from now on, I want to be known as Princess Leah. And I'm like, yes, Your Majesty. And I bowed down. And everybody started laughing. And it was a lighthearted moment. I use this story why? Because if a 70-year-old woman, after 7 decades of being told she's fat, stupid, and ugly, and then some, can empower herself and give herself permission to create a new personal brand, then any one of us can do it. If she can do it, anyone can do it. I can't tell you how many people came afterwards to me and told me about their brands and how impressed they were about this lady. She's an inspiration. So,
I love hearing that, because it is about your personal brand. And we've done a workshop on personal branding, and I'm going to make sure that we leave the link below or after this to our personal branding worksheet, because it's absolutely important. And a lot of times your brand walks in the door before you do, because people know who you are. So that woman, sadly, because she was branded, and I won't even say those words, but I'm glad you did, as such, she not only believed it, but that was her brand for 70 years, sadly. And then she changed it. You said 70, correct?
70.
Yes. So now she's Princess Leah versus fat, ugly, and stupid, I guess I will say.
Which are horrific brands. I mean, there's horrible. Believe me, once he said it, like everybody, we were stunned in silence.
I bet.
I think what's really cool about that story too, I mean, even though that, many of us walk in some of those brands, and some of those brands are put on us, and some of them, we choose to embody. But how beautiful for this woman, and I think it's also a story about it's never too late.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm done. I don't believe this anymore. And that's something that even our community, like, I don't believe that being over 40 and 50 is now mean I'm past my prime. That is not a label. It is a label I refuse to consume, refuse to embody. But it takes the person, in this case, that woman, to say enough. And this is what we want to be known as.
And our personal brand is critical to our personal happiness, because if you're viewing yourself through those negative lenses 24/7, there's no way you're going to be happy. No
way.
To your listeners and to all your ladies out there, I want you to seriously think about your brand. It typically happens early on in our lifetime. If you have a positive brand, like in my case, fully embrace it and count your blessings. But if you don't like your brand, today's the day to seriously, consciously think about it and make that change, and then begin to live your new brand.
And I love that, because our next segment is going to be about pushing start. It was an article that I wrote earlier this week in our newsletter, and it literally is never too late. You don't need to have a plan. You don't need to have all of the resources, all of the research, or all of the whatever it is to change whatever your personal brand is, because you're trying to do a deep dive, which you should, but also just dive in and get rid of those words and recreate your own brand and read it every day. Make it an affirmation so that you begin believing it. Yeah. I'll let you ask the next question.
Of course. For those watching, kudos to my amazing work wife for showing up of all days, because y'all know Barb, right? Of all days to have her voice out, it's
all days.
It stinks, but I am so glad to be beside her and her trying this hard. So, applause, double snaps to her, right? Dr. Elia, so I am curious too. So many of you, when someone says, hey, I just want to be happy, I'm curious, there's so many definitions, so many interpretations to what the word happy means. I'm curious to know, through your work and through, the institute that you've created, how do you define happiness, and how does one find that?
First of all, happiness is a choice. And I know that may be a controversial statement, but believe me, you have to work at it. For some people, they may have a predisposition to be happier personality-wise or whatever. But for most people, we have to work at happiness. And happiness is not one thing. Yes, loving yourself and taking care of yourself is really important, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. There's no question about it. But there are other aspects of happiness. For example, gratitude. There's no way I can be grateful and be unhappy at the same time. Those two cannot coexist at the same time. Okay.
Very true.
Very true.
You know, those are big. Forgiveness is another big aspect, especially self-forgiveness. I've worked with so many people as a clinical psychologist the first half of my career, and the second half even in the corporate world as an executive coach. I can tell you, people, even if they forgive others, they have a hard time forgiving themselves.
Oh, I believe
in my
it.
book, I go through a process, and the take action that we talked about. So people know that they just don't know how to do it. So in my book, I share this is how you do it, step by step, self-forgiveness. This is exactly how you do it.
That's fun.
So how do we do that now? Considering, because you are a PhD, considering what we're going through right now, how do we overcome, even for those that are traditionally happy and were born happy in their cribs? How do we do that? How do we do that in a time where there's so much upheaval in our minds and out there in the world?
So now we may switch over to the other book, The 7 Keys to Navigating a Crisis, which just came out literally on Friday. I physically don't even have my book yet in my hands. I ordered from Amazon. It's taking a while to get here, so I don't have it to show it to you, but it exists, the ebook and the paperback version. And
we'll link it.
And honestly, I had an inspiration about 60 days ago, because the first book took like 2 years to write. It took a long time. Wow. And I got the message from, and I call it the spirit, because that's where I got it from. That, Ilya, you need to write this book because the world needs it, and you need to do it now. It needs to come out in May, not next November, not 2021. And I called my writing partner, just like you guys are partners. Mm-hmm. My work husband, I could say that, right?
Yes, you can.
Yeah. Konstantinos Papadopoulos, that's the big Greek name. My partner and my best friend, basically. And I said, dude, I'm going to write this book. Are you in? And he said, I'm in. So for the past 45 days, we've been heads down. And we got it out in 45 days, which is incredible.
Oh my gosh.
So now, how do we navigate a crisis that's unprecedented?
Yeah.
And the 7 keys, by the way, principles apply to any crisis. The financial crisis that's already happening, because there are hundreds of millions of people that have lost their jobs and may never recover. It works for personal health crisis, physically. It works for relationship crisis, but it also works for natural disasters and so on. The key is, there's several keys. Number one, again, self-care is number one. You have to learn how to take care of yourself in the midst of all this, in the areas that we talked about. So in the book itself, I created I guess what you would call a personal health assessment.
Oh, so that's good.
It's 20 questions, 5 on the physical health, emotional health, mental health, and spiritual health. So you take the assessment at the beginning of the book to see how you're doing in these 4 different areas. And then, there are keys of how to take care of yourself in all 4 of those areas. Okay, no worries.
Yeah.
Lupe and I, we got it.
You got this. Yes, you're good, girl.
Okay. But the next part has to do with being aware, like getting quiet and listening. Like I listened, and you can call it the spirit, you can call it that still small voice, your intuition or your inner wisdom. I don't care what you call it, but pay attention to it. And when you hear that calling or that voice, act upon it. Like I acted upon it immediately. As soon as I got it, I called my friend. We got down, we started writing the next day. And in 45 days, we have this book that just came out. Mm-hmm. So to be able to be aware of what's happening. Now, the third part has to do with flexibility. I mean, just like what you did just now, you woke up this morning thinking you're going to have this great show, and it is a great show, but Barbara lost her voice. Yeah. So now she actually physically left, she's not even here, but we're adapting and we're being flexible on the fly, basically. Mm-hmm. You're able to take over. We need to be flexible during any crisis. And I like to use the analogy of, the oak tree and the palm tree. So the oak tree, when you think about an oak tree, what do you think? Massive, huge, has been there for 100 years. But guess what? Immovable, unflexible, inflexible. If you get in a hurricane, if you get enough rain, enough saturation on the ground, and if the winds are strong enough, guess what happens to the oak tree? It comes crashing down. Boom, crashes trees, homes, or even kills people. The palm tree, on the other hand, which is much, much thinner if you think about it, when at the top of the hurricane, it bends literally all the way to the ground, flat. And guess what happens when the hurricane passes? It rises up again and survives. So in any crisis, do not be an oak tree, be a palm tree, be flexible, bend. Otherwise, you're going to break. So we have to adapt. The pandemic has thrown things at us that we've never seen before, right? Never seen. So we have to remain flexible. Now, there's a big difference between danger and fear. If someone were to come close to you, close to your face and cough in your face, that's dangerous. Danger is real. Fear, however, is paralyzing, and fear is not your friend. Fear is never your friend. Danger, we need to become aware. Remember, I need to become aware of my environment. You know, if there's a flood coming or an earthquake or whatever, I need to become aware of that. But I don't need to give in to fear. Yeah. And when it comes to crisis, there are 4 types of people. This is actually, and I want the audience to think about, where am I right now this morning? The first type in dealing with crisis is called the victim. And the victim is, this always happens to me. Why is this happening to me? You know what? You know, it's all about me, and victimized and poor me, and just beating ourselves up. So the group, that's type number 1. Type number 2 is what we call the critic. Now the critic sits back in their big fat chair, and they're like, no matter what the government says or anybody else says, for example, well, you should wear a mask. Well, that's stupid. Okay, you shouldn't wear a mask. You should be free to do whatever you want. Well, that's stupid. Like, no matter what you say, it's stupid. Like, they criticize everybody, everyone, but they do nothing. The third group, we call them the bystanders. And the bystanders, you know, they're good people, but they're like the deer with a headlight. Look, they're frozen in fear. They really don't know what to do. They're overwhelmed by the news. They're overwhelmed by the circumstances. They're overwhelmed by what's the pandemic, and they're frozen. Now, what all 3 of these groups have in common is that none of them take any initiative. Poor me, criticize everybody, and frozen in fear. And then we get to the 4th group, which we hope that we all become, which is called the navigator. Now, the navigator starts with a positive attitude. You know, these too shall pass. We will overcome this as humanity. The virus is not going to kill us. Humanity is going to overcome this. I promise you that. We're going to get out of it. It may take longer than we anticipate, and the financial impact is going to be longer. But in the end, we will survive. Like the old Gloria Gaynor song, "I Will Survive." Think about that song.
Yeah, it's a good song.
It's a great song, and keep playing that. So the navigator is positive, rationally and calmly looks at the situation, creates a plan of creates a plan of action, and then takes that action, and then navigates their way through this crisis. And not only that, we're not here to just survive this. I'm talking about thriving through a crisis. And you might say, oh, yeah, that sounds like extreme. How can you thrive? I'm barely surviving. I want you to know this crisis forced me to write a book in 45 days, which is not even feasible if I think about it. I don't even know how it happened, because I chose to listen, to be aware, to be flexible, to ask for help. I can't do it by myself. I asked for help. And then, you know, we gave birth in 45 days. Most births take longer than that, usually 9 months.
Yeah. Yes. You know, and I love the story, and I love the ideas of the different kind of personas that you can be. And I love the idea that you, even if you find yourself in one, you can migrate into other, you can grow. You're not necessarily stuck in one mentality. And so it's this idea of, I love the palm tree and the oak analogy, because that is true. Right now, we don't know what tomorrow holds, nor with the 3 months, 4 months. It is totally true. We will survive. We will come out on the other end, but it's how you show up today.
Exactly.
It's going to find how tomorrow, how the next day shows up. We cannot control everything, but we can control how we show up and how we choose to engage with what we can do.
Actually, there are more things.
And I absolutely agree. And I agree with the choose happy. We've got that on our wall in the office. As a matter of fact, it really is a choice. You're either going to be one of these 3 that take no initiation, or you're going to be the navigator and get up every day. And as I say, no matter how you feel, get up, dress up, and show up every day, and never, ever give up. Because I agree, this too will pass. I know we're all saying that. And you can listen to any positive person. We're all saying it, but it's true. We will outlast this. We will.
And I wanted to say something, those 4 types, we have all of them. Don't think that I'm only the navigator and I don't have the other ones. Believe me, I felt a victim. I had talks all over the world that were planned to give, keynote talks all over the world, all canceled. So initially, like, well, why is this happening?
Yeah.
I was looking forward to going to Barcelona. Done, gone. Okay. Or I hear some things from the media and I'm like, well, that's stupid. So I've been the critic too.
Yeah.
And initially when it
Yeah,
happened,
well, we've all done that.
yeah, and the bystander, we're all that. But I want to be a victim for like 5 minutes or half an hour and then get back
Yes,
to
that's
navigating.
it.
That's really,
That's it.
because we're not perfect human beings. We're fallible. We make mistakes. I can criticize
Right.
for a little bit, but then I need to stop criticizing and get back to navigating. Or even the bystander, even that initially when this first started happening and things started closing down, I'm like, what the heck am I going to do? Like, seriously, this is before I thought about writing the book. But then I navigated through that and I came up with an idea and the book is out and now we're moving forward and I'm, busier than ever, actually, in some ways. But
so let me ask you this. As we have people watching, hi, Leslie Odom and others, we would love to know what are a few key steps that women in business or are out of a job because their corporate furloughed them or they're just not working. What kind of advice would you give for those, no matter what type they sit in, but especially the victim, the critic, and the bystander? What would you say to those three types?
I would say, acknowledge it and say, yes, I'm in a victim mode right now, but I still have a choice to move to navigating. Oh yeah, I'm being critical, right? Or beating myself up, or I don't know what to do because I'm frozen in fear. Don't stay there for more than I'm gonna be the victim for an hour. After that, give yourself permission to go to navigate. Because that's normal. We're human beings. These are normal types. I'm not castigating anybody. I'm just saying I don't want to live in victim mode. I don't want to live in a critical mode because that doesn't help me, makes me miserable, actually. And I certainly don't want to be passive, frozen, and do nothing while the world passes me by. Now, going back to, especially with the financial stuff, what can you do? Like, Lupe, you said it best. There's so many things out of our control collectively and individually. But what is within my control? Number one, and that's key number 6, actually, in the book, is have a positive attitude. That's within my control. I can choose my attitude. I can be cranky or I can be happy. That's a choice that I have, even in the midst of a crisis. And what I would say, think outside of the box. In other words, the new normal is the new normal. Yeah. So, and it's going to continue being that way. So I can't continue doing business as usual, given the world that we live in, because everything is upside down. So I have to redirect my thinking. Listen to that spirit, listen to your inner wisdom, listen to your intuition, write it down when you get that message immediately, and then act upon it. Yes. Don't just write it down or don't dismiss it, believe me, because that's your truth. And when
I agree. It is all about execution and acting. And for those of you that are just watching, yes, I lost my voice. Don't know how. Rarely do. But yeah, it is about activating on what it is you're feeling. Write it down and decide what steps you're going to take to move on it. So we just have 1 minute left. Where can people find you and your new book?
dreliagregoris.com. That's my speaker's website, or thehappinesscenter.com. So those are the two, or LinkedIn. LinkedIn is probably the best way, obviously, to find me as well. And what was the other question? Sorry, because there's a message right
there. And here's another. Let's go ahead. If you have a moment, Dr. Elia, I would love for you. Lisa Sharp. Hi, Lisa. She said, if you can read, she says, she's in a hard place and feels more empowering. Name. Lupe, can you read it?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
It says, I'm in a hard place or struggling. It feels more empowering to name the role I'm playing or the temporary zone I am in, whether it's victim, critic, et cetera. And I think, that's spot on, Lisa, the idea of like, now you have new vocabulary. Sometimes it comes down to just having the vocabulary to be able to express the state of where you are finding yourself in, but then also now knowing, say, hey, if I'm in the victim zone, what can I do to, shift my mindset and move from one space to the other and become that navigator? And I think that, Dr. Elia, that's where I love those ideas of just being cognizant of it and then actively choosing, because only you can control how you show up and how you engage. So that's
right.
advice.
You know, it's been such a pleasure being on your show. Thank you for having me. Barbara, this too shall pass. You will regain your voice, your powerful voice again. I promise you that.
It's called love.
Yeah. And as far as the books are concerned, both of them are on Amazon. Very easy to find. Both books are on Amazon, and maybe we can put the links on them, later on or something. Yeah.
Nice.
Wonderful. Well, we appreciate having you here, and I look forward to the one day that we're going to be co-hosting that show, the Kindness Hunters.
Yes,
Thank
indeed.
you for being here. We know you have another meeting to get to.
I do,
So
I do.
Randy, we said hello, and we
All right.
love you. And thank you
I
so
love
much.
you too.
So much.
I
Have
love
a
you
great
both.
day.
Not only do I love you both, but I really love what you're passionate about and what you're doing and helping thousands and thousands of women who and creating that community that you guys have. You're the perfect hosts. I'm telling you.
Oh,
All right.
Meet our day.
thank you so much.
Well, you guys made my day too.
Bye.
Bye.
So, wow, I love that man. And I love what he had to say. And it goes perfectly and it segues perfectly into the next subject, which is pushing play. And it's the blog that I just wrote in the newsletter. Oh, thank you, Lisa. In the newsletter that just went out. I'm going to take a sip. I went to the kitchen to grab some honey.
Hey, yes.
So,
On you.
So, it really is the idea that we're in a new space and time. This is, as Elia said, our new normal. So what are we going to do with it? Are we going to sit and be a victim? Are we going to sit and be the critic? Or are we going to sit and be the bystander? We can be all of those things, but only for the moment. Because after all, you do have to choose to move on. Life is for living, and every day every minute, every second we're getting older. This is a time to move on whatever it is you've held that you've always wanted to do, or you think about where you are right now and how you can make where you are right now better. And that's making a plan, or that's just mind mapping, or updating your vision board, whatever it is. It's really about pushing play, right? Wouldn't you say so? I mean, why hold onto how you're feeling?
Gotta just move forward on it. And you know what? So I'm going to also add to that yes, as you kind of divvy up the honey, right?
Right.
Also, so what I want to also acknowledge, and we all acknowledge because we've been there, is that it's scary. Like, we're going to acknowledge the fact that before you push play, it's scary. And that time in that, when you're at that kind of intersection where you're like, what do I do? Where do I go? How do I engage? How do I show up?
Right.
You have a lot of, perhaps maybe your mind is filled with doubt, or with second guessing, or with, I don't know enough, whatever it might be. Like we, and I myself included, we'll come up with 101 excuses on why not to do it. But the thing is that the more that you make excuses for yourself, the more that you deprive your gifts to share that with a community, to share that with the world. We all have innate gifts and talents that we bring to this world, but sometimes we shortchange ourselves for whatever reason. So now more than ever, the time where you like Dr. Elia was saying, you got to give yourself the grace. You got to give yourself the, hey, where am I? Take full stock. If I'm in the victim mode, or if I'm in the, bystander mode, why am I here? And how can I change that mindset?
Right.
Barb, you do a great job of that every Monday with the affirmations on setting the tone of where you want your week to go. That then helps direct everything that you do from that point forward. You're like, okay, I'm going to show up. I'm going to do it. But acknowledging fear is okay. And it's called being human. But it's also saying, now what do I do with that? Where do I take that from? What do I need to continue to still show up, engage, and do what I need to do to share my talents?
Exactly. So what is it that you can do every day? Or if you're what the viewers that are watching, what are you doing? What are you doing right now? I mean, we've been in this for now going on 2 months. So by now we've all realized we can't pause anymore. We've got to move. If you've got a business, you have to pivot. I know that's the big word that everybody's using, but it's true. You have to pivot. You have to navigate your way through your new normal, and you have to innovate. So where are you going with your company or your career? And we're going to talk about careers on another session, and literally have, Megan Jo with Amazon Web Services, who's a hiring agent, and Kristen with the City of Denver, and others. So right now, what are you doing? to navigate your way. Maybe there's suggestions that you have. I know, for instance, our example is what we're doing right now, right, Lupe?
Yeah.
We literally said last week, we're devising all these programs. You're working on online courses with two of our insiders, Katie Smith and Brenda Avilas out of Brooklyn, and you're working on courses. And I took on this project and said, all right, we are just going to go ahead and move on this thing, move on our YouTube channel. We wanted to start, later this year. We wanted to start a podcast in 2021. And we decided, why push play? And I'm the planner, right, Lupe?
No, nobody knows that about her, right? Okay, so I got to give you props on that because I do love the blog and the fact that you called out. You're like, I drive my business partner crazy.
I'll myself out.
Okay, this woman. But I gotta say, I've learned.
I'm all about a project.
I have learned you cannot just show up and not have a game plan. And so we're not saying, just do it and kind of just go. Sometimes there's a fine balance between the two, right? Like you got to know where you want to go in order to, get behind the wheel and actually, step on the gas and go. And so I love that we are finding kind of like that middle ground about creating, smaller plans and talking through things, and also leaning on the expertise that we as women, 3-time entrepreneurs, been in business for 20 some odd years each, individually, like we bring a lot of knowledge to the forefront. And it's a matter of trusting that intuition, and making sure that you show up and you execute on all of the knowledge that you've accrued, the good and the bad, where you fall in love with all the lessons that we've learned along the way.
And that's what you told me the other day, because, you asked me, why aren't you trusting in some of you gave me 2 examples of things that I said, let's hold on. Let's hold on. We got to get a plan. We got to, I'm all about drafting that. And seriously, it's like a 5-page plan, but
a 5-page
plan. It's like stuck from my corporate days. And instead now, I had this awakening, I guess you could say. I feel like I had heard, they say things happen in threes. So I feel like things happen in threes. And I feel like Oprah maybe even mentioned something. But there are times where you can resource yourself to death. You can research yourself to death. You can do all these things and write as many plans as you can. But if you're not executing, and if you're not just saying, all right, let me just pause for a minute. You know what? Let me just go. Yeah. Let me just do this. Let me believe in the idea that my business partner or whomever else may have to push the company forward. And it's funny because, as you know, Lupe, I'm usually the one that's like, let's just go. And then, I'll still build a plan around it. But I'm like, that's how this company came about.
Yeah, it's kind of that role reversal.
I couldn't find a job. And we pushed play and we started, and, with no plan.
Yeah, but that's the thing. So, I guess it's all about calculated, pushing of the button, right? Like there are things that are going to require more in-depth, planning and assessments and understanding, right? And there are things that I think intuitively, you've got. And you maybe the time you're spending on the research or the planning or whatever, or maybe just delaying your ability to kind of push the plate. And for whatever, maybe you need to take stock of that. Maybe you need to look yourself in the mirror and ask, why am I doing this? Why am I taking this long? Why, et cetera, to kind of get an understanding of maybe that, okay, so now how do I reshift that mentality so that I can move forward? Because I think, we wouldn't be great today. How do we set it? We're going to create a plan. We're going to research. And we're going to do all this. Still planning.
And and it's also, it's interesting. I want to answer Lisa's question, but I want to take a step back and talk for a moment about what Dr. Elia said about those 4 categories. When things happen or you feel shut in, literally and physically, and mentally. The victim, the critic, the bystander, and then you've got the navigator. So those first 3, as he said, don't take the initiative. Pardon me. And I literally had a place I was going with that, and I forgot because my damn voice is annoying me. But I guess it's that I'm curious as to how many people out there are in that category, and how can we create accountability within each other to move forward. Maybe it takes accountability, maybe accountability partner. Maybe it takes someone that you recognize in your family or friendship circle, or this group that can hold you to being that victim for a moment. I know where I was going with it, being that victim for a moment and then moving on. Because I feel like, and I say this a lot, I feel like Murphy's Law is always in effect. It's Barbara's Law, but I crack up every time because I have the most incredible, craziest things that happen to me. Like, and all I can do right in the vein, like people say, I should write a book about it. I mean, I can't believe some of the stuff that has happened to me in my life where I've witnessed. And what do you do? You just move on. You can take that victim mentality for a moment, as long as you're going to take that moment to cry or to give yourself permission to cry or take it in for that moment. But also tell yourself you're going to take that moment and jump out of it, and you're going to do something about it.
And I think that's really important, because I think that goes into just mindset, right? I mean, like Lisa's comment, she says she keeps moving forward even when she doesn't feel like it. And then sometimes she gets discouraged or overwhelmed and she lays down and listens to calming music and allows herself to take a nap. So she then gets up and then she feels energized. And she found that, that's a helpful way to focus on the next thing and tune in. And I think that's a perfect example that we're not saying disregard. Like it requires you to be fully aware of when, the ebbs and flows of our emotions. And the fact that, hey, you need to acknowledge when you're feeling down, but then you also need to consciously tell yourself, or rely on our communities like Second Act to say, all right, girl, you've wallowed enough. Now let's move it on, because you cannot continue to live in that space. And plus the idea that tomorrow is borrowed. Like, you don't know, if tomorrow is here. So many people, we've lost so many great people this year as a result of that. Like Kobe Bryant, for example, he would have never even guessed that he was going to get into that chopper and not be there, the next day for his family. And so the more that you live life on hold, what are you depriving yourself of? What are you depriving those around you and the community and world at large? And so when you look at it, an opportunity of being more selfless in that sense, hopefully that'll move you from whatever, funky state you're in now, that idea of like, I'm not just doing it for me. I got to do this for everyone who will benefit from whatever it is that I'm bringing to this forefront or this conversation.
And it's interesting because Lisa and I have talked about this. I came out, and I will continue to come out that way. But it's really funny. I have another story about that. But anyway, I came out with my with living with depression. I have to do this with living with depression. And for the 7 years that I knew that I was diagnosed with it, with bipolar depression. And that's one that I just started admitting, which is that it's bipolar depression, which means it's a mood disorder. Mm-hmm. So coming out with it was difficult, but it was also important to say that you could be the cheeriest, happiest, most motivated person. But there are times where I'm like Lisa Sharp, where I want to go and I want to take a nap and I want to sleep off whatever is about that is in my head that I can't stop. I mean, I think they say that we literally have 30 to 50,000 thoughts a day and negative thoughts a day. So, there are times where I'm like her, I just want to take a nap. But now that I know that I've got this, that I'm living with this disease, I just know that I either get on the phone with Lupe or I call my mom. I get a good cry out, which I used to think was vulnerable. So I wouldn't cry. And I wouldn't even want to tell anybody what I was going through. I mean, literally disappear for a week or two, go underground, kiki it with people online and act like I'm, fake it. And instead, it's good for us, people like Lisa, who recognizes that there are times that she just needs to take a nap and stay focused, which I love. Stay focused on that one thing, because I just thought about when she said that. That's what happens to me is I get excited and enthused when, we're launching things like this, or we've got this beautiful community of women that keeps us going just through their words and they're commenting and they're connecting with one another. So I guess just kind of, no matter what you're going through, take that moment, take that nap, Lisa. And I love that you have your ritual. That's your ritual.
Yeah. And that's beautiful. Yeah, no, that was not. I was giving Barb a hard time about that the other day. I'm like, girl, being connected to yourself and like aware and like, you know, in tune with the energy is not woo woo. And so that's why she's using that. But no, you know what? I mean, I think half the battle to being able to, I think, live comfortably within your skin is knowing when you need to either check out and check back in. Like there's nothing wrong. I think people sometimes hesitate about the perceptions or how is someone going to look at me? Or, you know, if I do this, if I disengage, well, people look at me different and will the judge. And you know what? I think we've all gotten to a point in our life now at 40 and 50 plus that you need to like live life for you and what makes you, you know, feel good, what fills your cup. Because if it doesn't, then is this something really worth doing again? Because you're not here to live life for someone else. You and only you are the one living your life, your relationships, your emotions, your experiences. So don't give your power to someone else. Own it.
That's right.
And if you need to recharge by taking a nap, then do it. Like don't ask anyone else for permission because no one else needs to give you permission.
Well, and I love what this person said. By the way, Miss Facebook user, if you simply accept StreamYard, we could see who you are. But I will say, when she was saying that, and I love the statement too, don't live your life on hold, completely agree, because why would you want to stay here when everyone else is doing this? Yeah. This is you. Whoops, this is you and everyone else. Enjoying, doing, navigating, innovating, making a move. Why would you want to be this person? Why? That does nothing to your psyche. That does nothing for your future. That does nothing for your family or friends. So yeah, take your life off pause, push start, push play, whatever it is. Find an affirmation. I'm just going to show you, by the way, something that I do. By the way, no, I don't have white kids. I just have to take the pictures out.
Oh, Barbara.
I don't even have kids. Look, this is my board of affirmations.
Yeah,
this is how I keep myself motivated.
You even have a beautiful affirmation board at the offices, or maybe that's the one. Yeah. But you know, the idea is to here. So, you know, unlike my amazing partner who always like steps into everything like super boldly, I am definitely more of the like calculated one. I'm the more of the like timid, like I posted on Facebook today. I would never in my like 46 years be like, yeah, I'll go live with you on Facebook. Sure. I would be the one to be like, are you serious? Like, no.
You sure what? Oh my gosh.
So here's the thing. Like, you're right. Don't live life on hold, but don't also think that you have to create these big things, that you have to take huge steps or make huge strides to take life off hold. It could be something super tiny. It could be something that maybe pushes you in a way that you feel uncomfortable, or maybe you know that you've been putting on the shelf that you didn't want to do for whatever reason. Like, don't think these have to be ostentatious in order to make a positive move forward. They can be small and they can be big. And so give yourself, you know, the grace to say, I'm going to take a baby step today and another baby step tomorrow, or whatever it is. And before you know it, you'll be like me, making these huge strides to like be here in front of you live.
You wouldn't even speak in person. When we had our company together, you wouldn't even want to speak. You hated public speaking, yet you were great at it. And I was like, baby bird, time to leave the nest.
Yeah.
You have to recognize your strengths, and you're strong in this. But listen, we're gonna close that segment about pushing play, and we want to encourage you, and we are going to leave some ideas in the comments and some click-throughs just for some things, especially when it comes to Dr. Elia for his new book. But I want to do our segment, I almost said our new segment, like we've been doing this for a long time, called Spilling the Tea. And I'm going to share my screen. How awesome is it? Hold on. Let me just share the screen. All right. Here we go. And I hope you guys can see this window I'm about to share.
There you go. Yeah.
Check this out. Ma'am Date. I mean, how fantastic is it? We are spilling the tea on owning our badassness at no matter what age we are at. I mean, check this out, Madam Dame. Madam, woo, here we go. Vogue has now placed her on the front cover of Vogue magazine. Isn't that beautiful? 85 years and rocking it.
And she looks fantastic.
If this doesn't prove that age is only a number. And finally, some brands, not most, but some brands are getting it. Dove, Vogue, Cosmo. These are brands that are getting it. Yeah, Macy's, some others. But how beautiful is this? Is that not cool? What do you think, Lisa? I'm Lisa. What do you think, Lisa?
No, you know what?
I get my
I strongly believe that we are moving into a point in time where we are owning our voice. And I think it all comes down to like communities like ours that are all about saying, hey, like shed all those layers that we've had under, on top of us that have held us down, that have made us believe things. We are now in a time and a place, in a, stage in our life where we're like, screw it. This is me. This is, everything that you told me that I am before is an inherited belief. I inherently know, though, that I am badass and that I am beautiful. And seeing images like this, it just simply reaffirms, ladies, that we are a fierce force, and you've got to ensure to believe that and ingrain it. And then not just believe it, but practice it in your day-to-day.
You have to know it.
Will change the narrative. Absolutely.
You have to own it.
Amen.
You have to own that number. You have to own that number. Believe that just because you're sitting at 53 or level 46 like Lupe or Lisa, type in what your age is. No matter what level or age or number you're sitting at, you're badass and you can do anything. You can push play or you can stay on pause. But I tell you what, if you do that, that world will just continue to spin around you. And so this is just proof and that we're on the right path. Now, as Gen Xers, it's not going to be rainbows and unicorns, but we are certainly here, all of us as a community, to break the narrative and the stigma that 40, 50, 60, 70, 85 is too old. Too old to do what?
Exactly.
Too old to do what?
Exactly.
So, with that said, that was spilling the tea, and we are going to come to an end. We just want to say thank you. And, Lisa Sharp is 52, and she's happier the older she gets. I can attest to that. I have this new awakening. And so, Lupe, do you want to share with them?
Yeah.
Do you want to share with them the few things, and then we'll end the show?
Yeah. So, okay, I got to give my girl major props for like going through all this, her raspy voice. And thank you all for tuning in. Couple of housekeeping things. If you're not already part of our newsletter, please follow us. It comes out every Tuesday. You can sign up by visiting secondactwomen.com. That weekly newsletter is full of just great information about articles, blogs, guest blogs that we find from some of our Insiders Club, as well as articles about what it is to be fab 40, 50, 60 plus. And so sign up if you haven't already. Be sure to visit our events page on our Second Act Women. We are always working to provide just interesting, relatable and relevant topics for you ladies 40, 50 plus. If you have ideas, please email hello@secondactwomen.com. We are always looking for fantastic ideas to bring to our community. And last, if you haven't already joined our Insider Club, check it out. We are running a promotion now through May 18th. You can join this vibrant community. It is basically the next level up of this beautiful Second Act Women Facebook community that we have here. But that online resource is full of different types of tools, downloadables, video content, community. We have a private Facebook group for that group as well too, where it's really all about taking your experiences and your contributions and tapping into a designated community where we're, continuously adding new content for you ladies to up level, skill up, and step into your second act pretty, badassedly, if that's a word. So,
I love that.
Yeah, right. I just made a new word.
Yeah, you did. Our little wordsmith. So on behalf of Lupe and me and my pooch.
And her little pooch.
My little pooch. We want to say thank you for joining us for our very first the Morning Cup. And we look forward to more robust conversations. And we will be letting you know who is on next week. And we want engagement. So please join us every Thursday morning at 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. And we love you for being in this community.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be here without you. So God bless. And that's the end of our very first broadcast. Whoa. See you next week.
Thank you, ladies, so much. Have a great rest of your day.